Hey all, Andrew here. Welcome to the Onion Buns. So, we just had the English language debate for 2025. And unlike the French, we had a clear-cut winner. We had a KO. So first off, I want to say, like the French debate, no one but Pierre Poilievre was wearing a Canadian flag lapel. And that baffles me. I don't expect Blanchette or Singh to wear the Canadian flag as they don't represent Canada. Okay. Blanchette represents Quebec, and Singh's made it very clear that his first loyalty is Hamas now. But Carney should have been wearing one. There's no excuse not to. This is for the Prime Minister of Canada. That's what they're running for. So it's absolutely baffling to me that for two nights in a row, Poilievre's the only one to wear the Canadian flag on his, just a little pin, Canadian flag. It's a minor thing, but to me it talks about the character of the people involved. So we got started. How would you handle the US tariffs? Carney came right out of the blocks, warmongering and fear-mongering, but never actually answered on how he would handle it. He just, we got to take it to the States and we're in a war and they want to take our resources and they want to take over. It was just fear-mongering and warmongering with absolutely no substance behind it. Poilievre focused on strengthening Canada, so we are in a position to negotiate the end of the tariffs. And that made a lot of sense to me, honestly. Jugmeat doesn't answer. He talked a lot, but he didn't say anything at all. As for the bloc, it was blah, 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 Quebec, but he also didn't answer the question. Then Carney admitted that dollar for dollar tariffs no longer work. He's against them now, which contradicts his opening statements of fear-mongering and warmongering. Rah, rah, rah. We got to take it to them. We got to hurt the Americans. It couldn't have been more than 3 minutes and he was already contradicting what he had just said. But not once does Carney suggest negotiation. How are we going to put an end to the tariffs if nobody's willing to negotiate? Only Poilievre's been willing to say we need to negotiate. Carney, he's doubling down. He is 100% focused on trying to hurt America. I don't agree with the tariffs, but I don't think that's the right approach at all. But Poilievre then destroys Carney on the bad liberal policies of the last decade that weakened our country to allow Trump to put the tariffs on us. Carney resorted to his, I've only been PM for a month, completely ignoring the 5 years as Justin's chief financial advisor. I don't get Carney. Does he really not understand that we know this stuff? This is in this day and age, this technological day and age, these things are easy to look up. I'm baffled that he keeps lying about this stuff. Jugmeat talks about lost jobs and Carney's poor choices. I was surprised Jugmeat actually went at Carney after his cheerleading routine the night before in the French debate. Block called out Carney on pipeline lies. Carney, man, they're right. Carney in BC said he would use the Emergency Act to force pipeline from east to west. And then he got to Quebec and he said, I'd never do that. I'd never use the Emergency Act. So Blanchette is 100% correct to call him out on it. I wish more people called Carney out on his lies. Bloc does, however, want dollar for dollar tariffs on the USA. And again, we can't win that war. We cannot do dollar for dollar tariffs. We just can't. Poilievre then destroys Carney on Bill C-69, which is the anti-pipeline. Because Carney keeps saying he wants to build infrastructure, but he's going to keep this bill in place that stops any pipelines or minerals, for that matter, from being taken out of the earth. So, Carney is visibly angry about being questioned and not answering on the topics about pipelines. Carney's got a tell on his face. He gets angry, and you can tell it now. I've noticed he gets this 1,000-yard stare of just evilness in his eyes. He's just lightning bolts are coming out of his eyes. David from Moose on the Loose was saying, and I never noticed this before, but he's right, is whenever Carney's about to lie, he takes a step back from the podium. Does it every single time, like clockwork. And Jugmeat is already interrupting and speaking over people. This guy has zero class. He really does. Then Carney said something that caught me off guard, and it's absolutely unacceptable. Carney wants to remove political power over resources from the provinces in favor of a centralized government making all the decisions for the provinces. That's not how our Constitution is written. Like, the more Carney talks, the more obvious it becomes he wants power, and he's willing to do just about anything to try to obtain that power. Poilievre finishes off topic supporting oil, gas, LNG, nuclear power, and hydro. He was the only leader to support all forms of energy that would allow Canada to develop itself into a powerhouse energy broker. He was the only one. He wasn't anti anything. If it works and it meets all the rules and regulations, he's thumbs up for it. Okay, then we moved on to affordability. Poilievre starts off speaking to seniors and youth about tax cuts and trades training. Singh tells us about imaginary people he's spoken to, but really doesn't say anything. He says he supports government price fixing on food, and then he attacks corporations just in general. Corporations bad. Yeah, socialism. We've heard it before. The Bloc wants to increase old age security. As somebody who's 6 years away from old age security, I kind of like that one for my own biased personal reasons. Then the Bloc calls out Carney on tax evasion, which Carney replies by bringing up Trump. This is another one of Carney's tells. Whenever he's uncomfortable or he doesn't like the questions, he goes to Trump. He brings up Trump. He tries to change the channel and make it about Trump. Then Carney tries to push Brookfield's prefab homes. And he does this numerous times throughout the debate. Now, he doesn't say Brookfield, but we all know when he's talking prefab homes, if he gets elected, he's given that contract to Brookfield. Jugmeat wants to cut the GST, which sounds great, but he doesn't explain any more than, I want to cut the GST. Sorry, we kind of need more than that. Then he attacks Poilievre, and then he focuses in on Carney. So Jugmeat was kind of like all over the place tonight, but he really didn't, looking back over the debate, he doesn't add anything of substance. Everyone talks about Poilievre's slogans. Well, Jugmeat doesn't give us any meat to his slogans. He just keeps repeating the slogans. At least Poilievre gives us ideas on how he's going to obtain or do what he's saying he's going to do. Poilievre calls out Carney for repeating Trudeau's failed and broken promises, goes over the conservative policies to address affordability, which is what I was just saying. It's like, yeah, he'll talk in slogans, but then he'll give you the meat. This is how I want to do it. Now, you're free to disagree with him, but at least he's telling you in his mind how he's going to do it. Carney again pushes $25 billion to Brookfield for prefab homes. Bloc destroys Carney on his real fiscal disastrous record in the UK and around the world. Like, Carney keeps saying, I'm a businessman and I got these great experiences, but if you look into his fiscal record, it's not positive. It really isn't. Jugmeat lies and is talking over people again, another ongoing issue throughout the whole debate. Poilievre exposes Jugmeat's lies. Jugmeat refuses to let anyone speak. He just keeps interrupting him, talking over him, shouting over him. Carney lies and pushes Brookfield's prefab homes yet again, and then brings up Trump for good measure. Bloc calls out Carney for wanting absolute power, and they're correct. It's very obvious. Carney wants that power. He wants absolute, undetermined power, and he's going to take it no matter what. Carney is very angry over this, very visibly angry over this. Singh comes in and lies again. Poilievre speaks on taxes and horrible Liberal record. Singh interrupts again and lies. Carney tries to take credit for stuff he didn't do. Singh keeps interrupting. So, I'll say this about Singh. He wasn't just interrupting Poilievre tonight like he did last night. He was interrupting everybody. Nobody was safe from Jugmeat Singh. He was yelling over everybody tonight. Poilievre talks on affordability. Singh gets dressed down by the moderator for interrupting. Carney is angry and brings up Trump again. You seeing a pattern to this now? So the Bloc calls out Carney on stealing ideas and trying to cancel provincial powers, which, yeah, Carney's trying to do. He said it himself. He wants to centralize the power. So, yeah, Then we go on to public safety topic. Well, the Bloc talked about Quebec. Big shocker there. Carney is reviving the bill to abolish legal guns. Then he complains the Conservatives don't support banning legal guns. Poilievre talks on liberal catch and release policy for the worst criminals. Speaks on strengthening sentences to the worst offenders. Jugmeat wants to reform the RCMP, but again, slogan with no meat. He doesn't explain anything on this. He just says we have to reform the RCMP. Poilievre says he will use the notwithstanding clause regarding punishing the worst criminals to keep them in prison. Carney is against punishing the worst criminals and wants criminals protected. You can't make this shit up. He really is. That really is his position. A Bloc calls out Carney's hypocrisy. Carney is angry again. Jugmeat lies and then brings up illegal guns but has no plan to control them. Again, slogan, no meat. Poilievre says he will use notwithstanding clause to protect law-abiding citizens, not criminals. Carney thinks the liberal laws as they are right now are fine. You can tell he hasn't been in Canada for very long. Jugmeat on overdoses. Tells us more about imaginary people. Has no plan to combat drug overdoses. None at all. The only thing he said of any, I guess, solidity is he wants to hire like 1,000 border guards. Well, okay, that's great, but that's not going to stop the drug overdoses when the fentanyl plants are actually in Canada producing the stuff. So what's a border guard going to do? I don't know. Bloc wants to target gang members and terrorist organizations to protect kids. Okay, that's an honorable statement, and I can get behind that idea. Brings up horrible Century Initiative that Carney and the Liberals and the NDP support. For those that don't know, the Century Initiative wants to bring in 100 million people into Canada. I mean, we can't support them. We saw that bringing in just a fraction of them over the last 10 years. Poilievre talks how going after illegal guns rather than the Liberals targeting legal guns is the right solution. Carney and Singh keep interrupting him. Carney contradicts his own policy again, and then CBC swoops in for the save. Biggest physical threat. Poilievre says it's crime. Carney says it's China. That was funny because it's been very clearly exposed that Carney is very compromised to China. So the fact that they must have planned this in the pre-debate prep because he jumped on this instantly, that China was the biggest threat, but he didn't expand on anything. He just said China. Singh says drugs, but he was just asked this question and he had no plan on how to deal with it. And the Bloc said something interesting. They said dependency on the USA. And I do agree with them on this. This is actually a big threat to us and Poilievre talks on this all the time too, is we need to strengthen Canada within, so that we can stand up to Trump and then get the negotiation going. Because after 10 years of the Liberals, we are in such a weakened state that Trump really is a threat to us because we are so dependent on the United States for so much. Then we change to energy and pipelines and climate change. Well, no surprise to anyone, Jugmeat is against pipelines. And then he talks more about imaginary people. Poilievre is pro-pipelines, creating jobs, reducing carbon by not supporting countries that do nothing to limit their carbon. And he uses India as an example. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he brought this up in French too. It's like if we sold India our LNG and our natural gas and got them off of the coal they're using and everything, the carbon reduction that we would be enabling India to do is more than if Canada removed all of its carbon completely. Like just selling them our LNG and our natural gas and getting them off coal would have a bigger positive carbon, anti-carbon footprint to the world. And that's what we need. Like people have been saying this is Canada, we're like 1.4% of the carbon in the world. We're not an issue. Like the net zero is ridiculous because we have to destroy our economy for it. We're not the issue. The issue is China and India and these countries. So if we can get these countries to lower their carbon footprint, we are helping the world and we are benefiting our country, our workers, our industries. I mean, it's a win-win-win-win. Poilievre's exactly right on this. Carney gives a non-answer, complete non-answer. and the Bloc are against pipelines. But they buy oil and gas from the States. Then Carney brings up Trump, which is what he always does when he's feeling he's being overshadowed or painted into a corner. Then he pushes World Economic Forum again and China. He refers to them as Asian now because he said China's a big threat. But come on, we all know what he's talking about. Jugmeat whines some more about oil and gas. Poilievre calls out Carney on industrial carbon tax, and how it's going to raise costs for everybody. And he's right. Jugmeat interrupts again. Carney finally admits he's against oil and gas. It took him long enough, but he actually finally came out and said it. Then he pushes his net zero, which would absolutely destroy our economy. Refuses to admit industrial carbon tax will just be offloaded onto consumers. And then pushes WEF and China again. Jugmeat's interrupting and lying some more. And then he's talking about more imaginary people. Bloc comes out and says they're anti-oil and gas. Then they attack Alberta for their oil and gas. Then they say they're only interested in Quebec anyway. The Bloc did some good things in this debate, but I really don't know why they're in a federal debate, because they're a provincial party. Blanchette even came out and said, I will not be the prime minister. I'm not running for prime minister. Then why are you in a federal leaders debate? Carney is angry again, and he pushes his net zero in Brookfield some more. He spent a good portion of this debate trying to prop up Brookfield. Then we change topics to leading on a crisis. Carney is asked about balanced budgets. He brings up Trump. What that's got to do with balancing a budget, I have no clue. Then he's warmongering, says he will slow spending, but yesterday in the French debate, he announced $500 billion in increased spending on top of an already record-setting deficit levels. So, how is he going to slow spending if he's spending even more? Poilievre is asked about, does he support the Ukraine? Poilievre says he supports Ukraine, supports our military, and he supports building a new Arctic base. And Bloc wants separatism. No surprise there. Bloc also wants Hamas destroyed. Well, I can agree with that one. And it's back to Quebec. They can't help themselves. Jugmeat is asked about healthcare, demands provinces accept his demands, but he has no other plans. That was it. He's just like, they have to accept my demands. Poilievre, again, the CBC guy, is like, you were pretty vague on, do you support the Ukraine? And Poilievre's like, yes, I support the Ukraine. Oh, well, maybe you can talk more on it later and fill us in. It's like CBC doing anything they can to try to minimize the Conservatives. So Poilievre again says he supports the Ukraine. Says we don't need to follow the USA because the USA cut funding to the Ukraine. We need to develop our oil and gas and break the world's dependency on Russian Putin oil and gas. Makes perfect sense to me. I mean, Germany came to us and asked for our LNG, and Trudeau and Carney said there was no business to be made on this, so they were forced to go buy oil and gas from Russia, which helps Russia fight the Ukraine. So if you can break Russia from supplying oil and gas, profiting off oil and gas, you're helping the Ukraine by default. Carney says he supports the Ukraine. Then he starts I don't know where this one came from, but then he starts talking about his new world order. I find that type of talk very scary, and I find it very reminiscent of a certain German dictator. Singh says he supports the Ukraine, and then he talks healthcare without actually saying anything again. Does Singh not understand that just saying healthcare isn't actually a plan to address healthcare? Carney says he will not cut healthcare transfers, but he has no plans to increase them. Just so anyone that doesn't know, they're currently sitting at 21%. They're supposed to be a 50-50% split between the provinces and the federal government. Under the Trudeau-Carney Liberals, it's fallen to a record low 21%. So Carney's saying, well, I'll keep them at 21%. That's not helping healthcare. Bloc says they want a seat at the table, regardless who wins the election. Carney demands to be the leader. Well, here we're seeing that authoritative power broker again. Then he says and he said this last night in the French debate, there is no division in Canada. You can tell he has not been in Canada because this country is extremely divided. Jagmeet interrupts and yammers on about healthcare, but he still hasn't said anything of note on the topic. Then we change the topic to Gaza. Poilievre condemns Hamas and terrorists. says Israel has a right to live in peace, says we need to stop extremists in Canada. Jugmeat, of course, disagreed, and he supports Hamas. Carney supports Israel and Hamas. How exactly does that work? That's like saying you support Russia and Ukraine. Like, sorry, buddy, you need to pick a side on this one. A Bloc, they want to change the criminal code to stop extremists in Canada. And I agree with the Bloc on this. We need to change the criminal code. So religious extremism, hate, gone. Poilievre wants to fix the liberal immigration policies to stop extremists from entering. Another great policy idea. I mean, a lot of the problems we're having now are because of Justin's and Carney's open borders. The states we're having a lot of the same problems with Biden's open borders. So I agree with Poilievre. We need to fix what Poilievre wants to do, though. He doesn't want to do Trump immigration. That's just rhetoric from the NDP and the Liberals. He's been very clear on this. He wants to return us to the pre-Trudeau immigration policies that Harper had. We were the AAA immigration policies of the world. Other countries look to us for guidance on how to properly do immigration. And that's what Poilievre wants to go back to. And I agree 110% with him on that. Jugmeat interrupts and proclaims he supports Hamas again. Then we change the topic to leader's choice. Jugmeat to Carney. He calls out Carney about Brookfield. Great. And fortunately, then Jugmeat starts telling some lies. Kind of waters down the point he made prior to that. Carney says he's for Canada. Lies about his accomplishments again. Gets angry again. Then he lies some more. Blanchette to Carney. Calls out Brookfield fake green claims. Calls out Carney's self-serving conflicts. Challenges Carney to reveal his assets. Well, Carney defends Brookfield again. Lies some more. Refuses to reveal his assets. It's pretty clear to anyone who's not hyper liberal partisan that Carney has real conflicts of interest in his portfolio, and he is doing everything he can do to not show that. Poilievre to Carney exposes Carney creating inflation and bad fiscal policies. Carney lies about it. Carney to Poilievre. Carney brings up the security clearance. I swear to God, Poilievre almost started laughing. Poilievre absolutely destroys Carney on the question to point Carney wouldn't even look at Poilievre while Poilievre was talking to him. Like they were nose to nose and Poilievre's looking straight at him and Carney's like, wouldn't even look at him. It's like Poilievre absolutely destroyed him on this. Like, I don't know who thought. Like, and the bizarre thing is Poilievre has answered this question so many times that I don't know what Carney was thinking. He had to know Poilievre would be ready for this question. Carney was completely KO'd by this question. Then Poilievre was asked about his NATO timeline, meeting the NATO spending. Says his goal is for 2030, but says the sooner we get full free trade with the USA, the faster military spending will increase. Carney was asked if Liberals made life less affordable for Canadians. Carney lied about the rebates. It's the same old Liberal lie. Oh, we paid out more in rebates than we took in on carbon taxes. It's been disproven so many times. I don't know why they keep going back to this old lie, but they do. He admits the carbon tax had nothing to do with climate change. Well, that's new, but that's not really a good look on him, is it? Like, I want my 10 years of carbon tax money back now. Because I certainly didn't get it back in rebates. Jugmeat was asked about immigration. He doesn't really give an answer. The only thing he said is, oh, immigration is good and we need more immigration, and that's really all he said. Blanchette was asked about Quebec still having a carbon tax. They're the only province that does. He gave an answer that he doesn't think it's a carbon tax, and then he bragged that he's partnered with California. Yikes! Of all the states in America, that's not the state I'd be bragging about being partnered with. Poilievre asked if he will still defund the CBC. Of course, it's CBC asking questions. He says unequivocally, yes, CBC will have to operate like any other private non-funded organization. If they have a following in a market, they'll make their money. If they don't, they'll go the way of the dodo bird. It's on them. No more public funds. Carney was asked about tax dodging, tax evasion. He gives a word salad reply, but no direct answer. What's he going to say? Like, we all know he's evaded taxes personally and through Brookfield. He's got Bermuda, Cayman, and other tax havens. So what's he going to say? Jugmeat and the Bloc are asked what they would do if they held the balance of power in a minority government. All Jugmeat did was an NDP ad, almost word for word. And the Bloc just says Quebec, Quebec, Quebec. Then they're all asked the biggest regret. I like the Bloc's answer on this one. They say everyone should have partnered earlier to fight Trump's tariffs. Yeah, we should have. But instead we had elbows up and a fake Team Canada. So, yeah, the government we had betrayed us, basically. Jugmeat talks more about imaginary people. Like, for the amount of imaginary people he says he talks to, it's amazing he gets anything else done in a day. Carney, picking up on Jugmeat's lead, talks about imaginary people as well. And Carney won't even talk to the general public. But now suddenly he's a man of the people. Yeah, spare me. Poilievre, however, talks about wanting more time to meet and greet at his rallies. Okay, and we've seen him do this. So Jugmeat, Carney, and Poilievre basically gave the same answer, but only Poilievre we've seen actually walk the walk on this. So I believe Poilievre. I don't believe Jugmeat and Carney. They're once again telling people what they think people want to hear. Then we're into the closing statements of the debate. Jugmeat does another NDP ad. I guess he ran out of talking points. Carney comes up with Trump, 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 fear-mongering and warmongering. It was very clear he had lost this debate by this time, and he was cranky. And when he gets cranky, it's all about Trump. And the Bloc says Quebec, Quebec, Quebec. Poilievre delivers a brilliant, positive pro-Canada message. And I want to show you this. This was the literal KO of the night. I've been reading online, and thousands of people are saying this answer just won Poilievre the election. So I want to show this to you.
Yes. Only in Canada could someone start where I began and get to this stage. I was born to a single mother and adopted by school teachers who raised me to believe in the incredible Canadian promise that anyone who worked hard could do anything. That promise feels broken today. Many of you worried about paying your bills, feeding your families, or ever even owning a home. You're worried your kids are in danger. But I'm here to say it doesn't have to be this way. With change, we can restore the Canadian promise so that hard work gets you a beautiful house on a safe street under a proud flag. We can do it with hope for a change.
Gentlemen.
That was an excellent answer by Pierre Poilievre. That was a prime minister answer. That was the only person to talk about hope, prosperity, improvement. Now, that's what we should want to hear from our would-be leaders. And that was the end of the debate. Just a quick side note, though. There was supposed to be post-debate scrums. The scrums got canceled because some CBC personality, he looked like he was like 22, 23 years old. I saw a video of it, is why I know, was beaking off to the Rebel media group that was there. And apparently it all got really heated, and the Rebel was actually the calmer of the two. And the debate organizers canceled the scrums over security concerns. I guess the CBC, after watching their breadwinner lose this debate badly, they broke. It's the only thing I can think. So, like last night, the winner was Pierre Poilievre. Unlike last night, he delivered 2 KOs tonight. The one I showed you, and his answer to Carney on security clearance. He absolutely nailed it. So any undecided voter that sees that, they're going to come away thinking Poilievre is who they want for prime minister. I got to give the Bloc second place. The whole Quebec thing, I still don't think they should be in the debate because they're not a federal party. They're a provincial party. They only run candidates in Quebec. They only concerned about Quebec. That's a province. But if you ignore that and look at the answers, Blanchette gave some really, really, really good answers tonight. Really strong answers. Last place was Carney. he lost. And I know the CBC and CTV and all the bottom paid for media are going to try to spin it that he even competed. No, he lost. He lost big tonight. So Poilievre won. The block was second. Carney was last. And then we give a special prize to a mental breakdown for the night, and the second night in a row, Jagmeet Singh. Like, this guy's political career is over. It's done. He's gone. Finish. And that's my video for tonight. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, a subscribe, and a share. I'm trying to grow my channel, and a like, a subscribe, and a share does me wonders. And I appreciate everyone that does like, subscribe, and share. If you didn't like the video, leave a dislike. Always feel free to leave a comment. Don't worry, I don't swing my cane too strongly anymore if I dislike your comment. And as always, pew, 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 and shit. Thanks for watching. Bye.